Hey everyone, welcome back to Things I Know Nothing About. I'm Alex.
And I'm Maya. So, Alex, you've been practically vibrating since Davos wrapped up last week.
Guilty as charged, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, leather jacket and all, sat down on the main stage with Larry Fink from BlackRock and basically laid out a blueprint for where trillions of dollars are headed over the next decade.
Trillions. Plural. That's the kind of number that makes my brain shut off. Like, I can picture a million, a billion is harder, but trillions,
Right? And that's exactly why this conversation matters, because Huang didn't just wave his hands and say AI is big. He broke it down into what he called a five-layer cake, a framework for understanding where every dollar is actually going.
okay, I love cake metaphors. Walk me through the layers.
So picture this. At the very bottom, the foundation, you've got energy, raw power generation. AI systems process and generate intelligence in real time, and that takes enormous amounts of electricity.
Before we even get to the fancy stuff, someone has to keep the lights on.
Exactly. Layer 2 is chips and computing infrastructure. That's NVIDIA's home turf. The GPUs, the processors, the silicon that actually does the math.
The crunchy part of the cake, as Fortune put it.
Ah, yes. Layer 3 is cloud infrastructure, the data centers and cloud services that deliver all that computing power on demand. Then layer 4 is the models themselves, ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, all the AI systems people actually interact with.
And let me guess, layer 5 is where it all becomes useful.
Nailed it. The application layer, healthcare, finance, manufacturing, robotics. Huang said this top layer is where economic benefit will ultimately happen, but here's the key insight. You can't have applications without models, can't have models without cloud, can't have cloud without chips, and can't have chips without energy. Every single layer has to be built and operated.
It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but for artificial intelligence.
That's a fantastic analogy. And the scale of what's being built at those lower layers is genuinely staggering. TSMC, the Taiwanese company that manufactures most of the world's advanced chips, just announced they're building 20 new chip fabrication plants.
20. That's not an expansion, that's an invasion.
Meanwhile, Foxconn, Wistron, and Quanta are constructing 30 new computer manufacturing plants. These aren't making laptops, they're building the machines that go into AI factories. And Micron has committed $200 billion to memory chip production in the United States alone.
200 billion from a single company in a single country. What does that look like physically?
Massive fabrication facilities, clean rooms the size of football fields, thousands of construction workers. Huang actually highlighted that. He said salaries for tradespeople building these facilities have nearly doubled. We're talking six-figure incomes for plumbers, electricians, steelworkers, and network technicians.
That's wild. So the first wave of jobs created by AI isn't coders, it's hard hats.
Precisely. He described it as the largest infrastructure build-out in human history. And here's the kicker, he said, we're only a few $100 billion into what will eventually be a multi-trillion-dollar project.
Okay, but Alex, every time I hear trillions of dollars and largest in human history, my bubble radar starts pinging. Isn't that what people said about crypto? About the dot-com boom?
You're not alone. Larry Fink brought that up directly at Davos, and the question is legitimate. Throughout 2025, big names like Jeff Bezos, Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon, even Satya Nadella were warning about potential AI overcapacity. An MIT study found 95% of generative AI pilots at companies were failing to generate a return on investment.
95%? That's terrifying.
It sounds terrifying, but Huang had a really elegant counterargument. He offered what he called a practical test for the bubble theory.
A test, like a litmus test?
More like a market test. He said, go try to rent an NVIDIA GPU right now. Just try it. The spot price of GPU rentals is going up, not just for the latest generation chips, but for hardware that's 2 generations old. H100 equivalents were sitting around $2.27 per hour in mid January, and in Europe rates were pushing $3 or more.
Wait, so even old GPUs are in demand? That doesn't sound like a bubble.
Right? In a bubble, you'd expect oversupply. Prices would be cratering. Instead, there's scarcity across the board. Huang pointed to Eli Lilly as an example. The pharmaceutical giant is actively shifting R&D budget from traditional wet labs to AI supercomputing. That's not speculative hype, that's an established company restructuring how it does science.
Because they think AI will discover drugs faster than chemists in a lab?
Not just faster differently, and that connects to Huang's third big theme, which we'll get to, but the bubble point is important. Fink actually flipped the question by the end of their conversation. He said, "What I'm hearing is we're far from an AI bubble. The question is, are we investing enough?"
The BlackRock CEO thinks we might be underinvesting in AI. That's a perspective shift.
Huang backed that up by noting that 2025 was the largest year for global venture capital investment on record, over $100 billion worldwide, with most of it flowing into what he called AI native companies. These aren't speculative startups, they're firms in healthcare, robotics, manufacturing, and financial services building real products on top of AI models that are finally mature enough to support them.
You mentioned three big themes. Let's get to the one about AI moving into the physical world. What did Huang mean by physical intelligence?
This might be the most fascinating part of the whole conversation. Huang outlined three major breakthroughs from 2025. The first was that AI models went from being novel and interesting to reliable and down to earth. Early models hallucinated constantly, they'd confidently make things up. The big leap was chain of thought reasoning, where models learn to break down complex problems step by step, form research plans, and reason about scenarios they'd never seen in their training data.
So instead of just pattern matching from what they've read, they're actually thinking through problems.
In a meaningful sense, yes. That's what enabled what Huang called agentic AI systems, models that don't just answer questions, but can take on tasks, do research, execute multi step plans.
Okay, breakthrough one. Reasoning. What's number two?
Open models. He specifically credited DeepSeek with catalyzing this shift. When DeepSeek released a powerful open source reasoning model, it lowered the barrier for everyone. Companies, universities, startups. Suddenly, you didn't need $1 billion training budget to build domain specific AI.
Democratization of the model layer. That tracks with the cake metaphor. More people can now bake at layer 4.
Beautiful extension of the metaphor. Now, breakthrough three, physical intelligence. This is where it gets genuinely mind bending. AI is no longer limited to understanding human language, it's starting to learn the language of nature itself.
The language of nature? That sounds poetic, but what does it actually mean?
Protein structures, chemical reactions, fluid dynamics, particle physics, quantum mechanics, these natural phenomena follow patterns and rules, a kind of grammar, if you will. And AI systems are learning to read and write in that grammar.
Like how AlphaFold cracked protein folding a few years back?
Exactly that lineage. But taken much further, Huang described the Eli Lilly partnership as a perfect example. They realized AI has gotten so good at understanding protein and chemical structures that researchers can now essentially talk to proteins the way we talk to ChatGPT. You can ask, what happens if I modify this amino acid sequence? How will this molecule interact with that receptor?
Instead of spending months in a lab mixing chemicals, you're having a conversation with a model that understands biochemistry.
And the model can simulate millions of interactions before you ever touch a test tube. That's what Wang means by AI moving from the digital world to the physical world. It's not just about chatbots and code anymore. Manufacturing, pharmaceutical R&D, materials science, climate modeling, these fields are being transformed by AI that understands physics, not just language.
So when Huang says physical AI, he's not just talking about robots walking around.
Robots are part of it. He called robotics a once in a generation opportunity, especially for countries with strong industrial bases like those in Europe. But physical intelligence is broader than that. It's AI that can model and predict real world phenomena. Imagine simulating how a new material will behave under stress, or how air flows around an aircraft design, or how a drug candidate will fold and bind, all before building a single prototype.
That would completely change the economics of R&D in every physical science.
which is exactly why companies like Eli Lilly are redirecting budget from wet labs to AI compute. The return on investment for simulation is becoming competitive with, and in some cases, better than traditional experimentation.
There's one more angle I want to hit. Huang made some bold claims about AI being national infrastructure, right? Like roads or the electrical grid.
He did, and it's a perspective that reframes the entire conversation. His exact words were AI is infrastructure. You should have AI as part of your infrastructure. He urged every country to build its own AI capabilities, drawing on local language, culture, and data.
Develop your AI, refine it, and have your national intelligence be part of your ecosystem. That's a quote that could reshape policy for a decade.
What struck me was how he connected this to the workforce question. Everyone's worried AI will destroy jobs, right? But Huang pointed to radiology as a case study. Over the past decade, AI has diffused into every aspect of radiology, reading scans, flagging anomalies, prioritizing cases. You'd think radiologists would be out of work.
But they're not?
There are actually more radiologists now than before AI entered the field. Huang's logic is elegant. The purpose of a radiologist isn't to stare at scans. The purpose is to diagnose disease and help patients. Studying scans is just a task. When AI handles that task faster, doctors spend more time with patients, see more cases, and hospitals hire more staff.
Distinguish between the purpose and the task. That's such a clean framework.
He made the same argument about nursing. The US faces a shortage of roughly 5 million nurses, partly because nurses spend nearly half their time on documentation and charting. Companies like Abridge are building AI tools that handle transcription and charting automatically. Hospitals get more productive, outcomes improve, and they hire more nurses, not fewer.
So his argument is that AI is inflationary for labor demand, not deflationary.
In the sectors he discussed, absolutely. He even cracked a joke about it. He told Fink, if someone watched the two of us doing our jobs, they'd probably think we're typists. Automating typing wouldn't eliminate their jobs because typing isn't their purpose.
Ha! The CEO of a $4 trillion company calling himself a typist. I love it.
And the semiconductor industry is pacing toward $1 trillion in annual revenue by the end of 2026, a milestone analysts thought wouldn't come until the 2030s. The big four hyperscalers, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, and Meta, are projected to spend a combined $500 billion in capital expenditure this year alone.
Half a trillion from 4 companies in 1 year.
That's the scale of what's happening, and it circles back to the five-layer cake. All that capex flows through the layers: energy, chips, cloud, models, applications. Each layer creates jobs, generates economic value, and enables the layers above it.
All right, let's try to land this plane. What's the takeaway? Is this the biggest industrial transformation since electrification? Or are we going to look back in 10 years and cringe?
Both outcomes are genuinely possible, and I think intellectual honesty demands we hold both ideas. The bubble skeptics have real points: 95% pilot failure rates, massive capex with uncertain returns, the ghost of every previous tech hype cycle. But Wang's counter evidence is equally compelling. GPU prices are rising, not falling. Established companies are restructuring their R&D around AI. Physical intelligence is opening entirely new scientific frontiers.
And the money isn't just going to software companies in San Francisco, it's going to chip fabs, power plants, construction sites, physical stuff that doesn't evaporate if the stock market dips.
That's the crucial distinction. A lot of the dot-com bubble was financial assets built on top of financial assets. What Huang is describing is concrete, literally steel, silicon, copper wire, electricity generation. Even if the application layer stumbles, those lower layers have durable value.
The cake might not taste perfect, but the oven and the kitchen aren't going anywhere.
I couldn't have said it better. The five-layer framework is genuinely useful, whether you're an investor, a policymaker, a student deciding what to study, or just someone trying to understand why your electricity bill might go up. Every conversation about AI should start with, which layer are we talking about?
And on that note, go try to rent a 2-generation-old GPU, report back. We'd love to hear how it goes.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If this episode made the AI build-out a little less bewildering, share it with someone who needs the breakdown.
Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe learn to wire a data center. Apparently, it pays 6 figures now. See you next week.